Hey everyone, Adam here, So Was Your Podcast. I'm talking to Mike about his comic. We're at Fandom Fest in Schenectady, New York at the gorgeous Proctor's Theater. Mike, how you doing?
I'm great, how are you?
Doing very good. Thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure, happy to.
So why don't you give everyone the rundown on your comic?
Sure, so I have two of them actually. My first graphic novel is called Red, White, and Broke. It's a superhero comedy. It's about a hero who can't afford to pay his bills because every time he flies off to save the world, he gets fired from his day job. So he launches a Kickstarter campaign to crowdfund being a superhero.
Okay.
Which is, what happens when you're in the real world and you're not a billionaire like Tony Stark or, Bruce Wayne.
Right.
My brand new book is called Uncaped. It's a superhero rom-com. Basically, it's what would happen if Wonder Woman fell in love with a regular average guy who is not quite ready to date the world's most famous superhero just yet. So those are my two books. They're both complete graphic novels. They're both superheroes, but with comedy to them. And that's what I'm here pitching today.
That's awesome. They're both cool concepts that make me think, why haven't I heard that concept before?
Thanks. I like to think so. I like to focus on sort of, I love superheroes, I love comic books, but I also like to think about, how would this work in the real world?
Right.
If you work at, Staples, and you fly off and disappear for 4 hours, and then you come back and you're like, oh, I was in the bathroom. They're going to fire you, right?
Yeah, it doesn't
you're not
work.
going to keep that job. So, I want to know, how do these people who aren't billionaires sort of be paid for stuff, and who makes their costumes and things like that. So that's what I really dove into with Red, White, and Broke. And then Uncaped just sort of came out as a, I like rom-coms and I like superheroes. I figured why not marry the two,
Right, yeah. So as far as your role, it says writer on your board. Did you
Correct.
write and you hired out the art, or do you do...
Yeah, no, I created them as far as they're my concepts. I wrote the scripts and everything, but I can't draw, unfortunately. So I put together an art team. Same team on both books.
That's
really
cool.
Great artist named Dennis Torona. He's amazing. I'm going to hold on to him as long as I can before the big ones snatch him up.
Right.
And then a colorist named Tiago Brandau and a letterer and production guy named Dave Lentz, who make it all look really, really pretty. So my words, my concepts, and then I kind of steer them in the right direction to make it all look fantastic,
Very cool.
Yeah.
So these are your two complete books right now.
Yep.
Have you been writing for a long time, or were these kind of your first forays into it?
So I've been writing. I've done a lot of prose writing in the past. I wrote a couple of novels that I self-published and things like that, and they take a really long time.
Oh yeah.
I've been a comics reader my whole life, and I was always sort of intimidated by the idea of doing comics because I can't draw. But once I got over that, I said, I think that this is what I want to do, and I really love writing comics way more than I loved writing prose. So I've been writing for 10 years, but I've only been doing comics for about 2 or 3 years now.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
How did you find the transition? I mean, you said you like it more, so obviously it went well, but...
Yeah, it's, I love the collaboration of it, I'll be honest. I always joke that, my first book, Red, White, and Broke, has a lot of interviews between the hero and a newscaster. And I always joke, if I drew the book, it would have just been 24 pages of two heads talking.
Right.
And then I give it to my artist, and he comes back, and he's like, here's an overhead shot, and here's outside the studio, and here's people watching on TV in a store. And, I wouldn't think of that stuff, So,
Right.
I really like that I can sort of give my artist, the basics of what I need, but then he makes it so much more creative and so much more inventive. And then that feeds me because then I can add to it and embellish, and I think it makes my writing better.
Right, you're starting to write visually.
Right, exactly. And I can tailor my script to some of the visuals he gives me. So I really love that collaborative aspect of it.
That's very cool. Did your artist ever come back to you and say, this is a block of text, I need room to draw a picture?
It's more the opposite. Sometimes I will give him a block of text and he will draw the picture, and I'm like, there's not enough room for that block of text that I need to fit in there. So then sometimes I have to edit a little creatively.
Yeah.
Or I go to my letterer and say, hey, see what you can do with this, because I got a lot of stuff in here. It's kind of important. But he's pretty good about, he's kind of learned my writing style, so he knows where to give it a little more room to breathe.
Okay.
And where it can be a little tighter. So we've gotten into a pretty good synergy now where I don't have to worry too much about that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
When I was first writing past an artist, I always had that phone call of it sounds good, but we need room for pictures. It's a comic.
Yeah, exactly. And I can be a little wordy because it's comedy, so there's a lot of it is in the dialogue.
Yes.
But again, though, what I've learned is I think my first drafts, I overwrite a little bit. Then when I get the artwork back and I'm like, oh, I got to pare this down, I think it makes the jokes a little tighter. You know, it makes the dialogue a little snappier.
Trim all the fat.
Right, exactly. Strip the fat out. So I do think the end result is better because of that.
Yeah, that's cool. You get that like word economy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. As far as the self-publishing goes, how has that been for you?
You know, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. I've funded all of the books through Kickstarter. I did Red, White, and Broke as a 4-issue series, and so I funded each issue of that, and then I funded the trade paperback. And then Uncaped is a one-shot graphic novel, which I also funded through Kickstarter. And you know, Kickstarter campaigns are a lot of work. But they've done really well for me, and they allow me to publish them. So then I can come to shows like this and try and get them out there to people.
For sure, yeah. Are you local to the upstate New York area?
I am, actually. I'm about 5 minutes away from Proctor's here. Where we are
very
today.
cool.
And so I travel all over the Northeast and do shows.
Thanks.
I'm doing, you know, I'm heading up, you know, New Hampshire and Baltimore, and I was just in Massachusetts. So I try and anywhere I can drive to, I try to get out there.
That's funny because Wizard mostly does like New England cons, and you were just in Massachusetts.
I was probably last weekend.
Oh, I
did Plastic City. It was a smaller show, but
I actually last year was the first year that I was a vendor there for my comic.
Nice.
But this year there was a scheduling conflict.
That happens.
So, yeah,
there's a lot of shows.
But I would have met you a week ago.
There you go. See, well, now we'll see it next time.
For people who aren't here, because they're going to see this after Fandom Fest, obviously.
Yep.
Where can they find your comics?
All the social media channels, I'm Out of Time Comics, just like this, Out of Time, one word. But also OutOfTimeComics.com. Right now, I only have the first book up because I'm still fulfilling all my Kickstarter orders for the new one. But once that's done, I'll have the new book up there as well. If anybody wants to order it, they can get digital or physical copies.
Very cool. And one thing I wanted to bring up, and it actually made me stop, so it worked, is your sign. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, so I have this sign here that says, "I won't pressure you. Come take a look," because people are sometimes afraid you're going to hard sell them at a convention, so I want to let them know they can flip through the books, and I won't, badger them.
Right.
And then I have my bonus sign that says, "If you think my sign is funny, you should read my comics." So because they do have a heavy focus on comedy, so I just want people to know that it's they're fun books, they're lighthearted, it's nothing grim and gritty.
Yeah.
And hopefully the sign will kind of give them a clue for that.
That's really cool because it made me do a double take, and I had to ask you if it worked, and you said yes.
I'm glad it made you stop. So it works out well.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate it. It looks like more people are filing in, so I'll let you get back to it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.